I get this question a lot. How do I hear from God? How do I know that God's speaking to me? Sometimes I think we want like a big experience, a big like, aha, definitely God is speaking to me in this moment right here. Like we read about in Exodus chapter 3, where Moses comes before God and it's like this, it's literally a burning bush experience. He's walking in the mountains and all of a sudden he sees this bush that's burning, but it's not being consumed, meaning it's not like falling apart because the fire, it's just chilling there, burning. And Moses steps in and God speaks to him, hey, you're sitting on holy ground, take off your sandals. And it's like, wow, what an epic moment. And he has this conversation with the Lord. Or we're like, maybe we'll be like Samuel, we're laying down. Remember, Samuel's a young boy in the temple. His mom dedicated him to the Lord after she prayed to have him. And we're like, oh, maybe we'll be like Samuel. He's laying down and all of a sudden he hears, Samuel, Samuel. And he gets up and he runs to his to the priest Eli, and he's like, yes, did you call me? And he's like, I didn't call you. And turns out he's hearing the audible voice of God. He's hearing God speak his name. And Eli tells him, just say, next time you hear the voice, say, yes, Lord, your servant is listening. It's like, man, I'm sitting here, I'm praying, I'm like, yes, Lord, your servant's listening. It's like, I'm not hearing anything. Is there something wrong with me? Or maybe you've read about the story of Elijah, right? In 1 Kings, I think 19. And he has this incredible moment where he calls down fire from heaven and it's awesome, right? And then he hears Jezebel's coming after him. So he takes off running. He's going to hide, basically scared. And God calls him to himself. And it says that God wasn't in the wind. He wasn't in the, it's like some crazy stuff that happens. And then God was it was like a gentle whisper. It's like, okay, I'm waiting for that gentle whisper. But I think in reality, we miss so many times when God is trying to speak to us because we're not paying attention, or we don't think it's the Lord speaking to us. For me, some things that I call them, God nuggets, right? When things are happening and all of a sudden like this God nugget, this God thought just comes into your mind. It's something that you would have never thought, like you're standing in line at the grocery store and God's like, hey, pay for that person in front of you. Listen, I don't care how good you are. You don't normally have that thought. That is a God thought. That's God dropping that in your mind. Be obedient. Say yes. The more you're obedient, the more you're going to hear from the Lord. The more you say yes to what the Lord speaks into your life, the more you will hear his voice because you'll get in line and in tune with him. But I think the real biggest way that we miss hearing from the Lord is actually through the word. Listen, what I do when I read the Bible is I underline. As I read through a chapter, I'm just underlining anything that's popping out to me, anything that I feel like, hey, this is popping out to me. And then I go back and I reread those underlines. I'm like, okay, Lord, what are you saying in this moment? And I got to tell you, time after time after time, so often, he's speaking directly to me, whether it's things that I've already prayed for. Just a couple of days ago, I was praying specifically, very specific prayers. And I'm praying, and all of a sudden God spoke, and it was like, wow, this is it. But sometimes I think we're wanting a big like, oh, like everything's coming down, the light shining on us. It's like, oh, this is amazing, this is perfect, this is definitely God. But it can look a little bit more simple than that. And so I'm trying to encourage you that you can hear from the Lord. Don't anticipate or don't think that every time is going to be a burning bush experience. Although I believe we can have those moments, or even hearing the audible voice of God. I believe that can happen and does happen today. But I think more often we hear from the Lord as we spend time with the Lord. And so although it may not be this grand moment that you have that you're like, wow, this is it. Be sensitive to what he's saying in these moments. Like, how come your prayers are aligned with the scripture that you read and you just went to the next chapter? It's not a coincidence. It's the Lord doing these things, right? or as you're reading the scripture, it's like, okay, what revelation is the Lord giving you in that moment? You know, it's like, okay, I just read about Lazarus being raised from the dead. And Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. And all of a sudden you have these thoughts that say, man, God has restored my life. He has given me life, and I am no longer dead in my sins because He is the resurrection for me now. You know what I'm saying? Like that's God speaking to you. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be crazy. Just listen, and God will speak to you. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for hanging out. Subscribe, like, comment. We'll see you later.